sister took credit for my idea, so I took it back and got what I deserved. I've always known that growing up with a sibling would mean some rivalry here and there, but I never imagined it would lead to something as deep as this. I mean, I always figured my sister Emma and I would have our differences, especially when it came to attention or who got the most praise. She was the popular one, the outgoing one. Everyone loved her. And then there was me, the more reserved, hardworking one. For the longest time, I was okay with this. I didn't mind stepping back while Emma was always the center of attention. I figured I'd eventually get my chance. After all, I worked hard, I had ideas, and I knew my time would come to shine. But that didn't happen. Instead, I was left in her shadow, constantly overlooked and pushed aside. It wasn't the biggest issue at first. Sibling rivalry, right? It happens. But then, when we started to get older, I began to realize that Emma wasn't just the golden child because of her charm. She was the golden child because she had learned how to manipulate the situation. She could always make people believe that she was the one who came up with the best ideas, the one who was most capable, and the one who deserved everything. And no one, not even our parents, questioned it. I had a breakthrough idea, a huge one, something I had been working on for months, refining, tweaking, perfecting. It was something that could change everything for me. My friends and colleagues were impressed. I was finally feeling like I had something that could be mine, that was completely original. This was my moment, or at least I thought it would be. But then, Emma swooped in. At first, it was subtle. She started suggesting that I present the idea to the right people. Maybe if you tweaked it a little, it would be perfect, she'd say, making small comments as if she were helping. But in the back of my mind, I knew what she was doing. She was slowly making the idea her own. I didn't want to believe it at first. I kept thinking, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe she's just trying to help. But no, this was different. When the day finally came for the big presentation, I was shocked to see Emma walk into the meeting, all smiles and confidence, with my idea, my project, as if it had been her brainchild the whole time. And what hurt the most? Everyone bought it. She was the star of the show, the one who received all the praise, the congratulations, the recognition. And I stood there, invisible, watching her bask in glory while I silently fumed. My idea was not only taken without my consent, but it was also celebrated as if I had nothing to do with it. This wasn't the first time Emma had taken credit for something I worked on. Growing up, she always found ways to get the accolades, while I quietly did the work. But this was different. This time, it was my idea, my hard work, and my future that was being stolen. I had spent months perfecting it, and all she had to do was step in, act confident, and walk away with everything. And no one even questioned her. I thought about letting it slide, about staying quiet. But as I watched her speak in front of people, I knew I couldn't. I couldn't let this go. It wasn't just about the idea. It was about me, my worth, and the constant undermining I had suffered my entire life. I had always been the one to step aside for Emma, always been the one to give her the benefit of the doubt, always been the one to say, "It's fine, she deserves it." But not this time. Not anymore. I was done playing her game. I was done being the invisible one. I was done letting her take everything that was rightfully mine. It was time to take control and show her, and everyone else, that I would no longer be the person in the background. I would take back what was mine, and I would make sure no one ever took credit for my hard work again. Growing up with Emma was never easy, though I tried to make peace with it. She was always the louder one, the more charismatic one. She could walk into a room and immediately command attention. It wasn't just that people liked her. It was that they adored her. I was the quiet one, the one who blended into the background. I never sought the limelight the way she did, but it felt like the attention was always drawn to her, leaving me with little more than scraps. At first, I didn't mind. After all, she was the older sibling. She was supposed to be the one to get noticed, to get praised. I assumed that as the years went by, I'd eventually get my own moment to shine, to have my time to be appreciated. But that moment never came. As I grew older, I began to realize that Emma was getting more than just the attention. She was getting everything. She was getting the praise for ideas that weren't hers, the recognition for things she barely worked for, and the admiration of everyone around us. I didn't expect our parents to see it, at least not at first. I figured maybe I was just imagining it. Or maybe they were just so caught up in the idea of Emma as the perfect child that they didn't notice how hard I worked or how much I contributed. But eventually, I started to notice something disturbing. Whenever I worked on something and presented it, no one took it seriously. My ideas were dismissed, overlooked, or brushed aside as if they didn't matter. Emma, on the other hand, could barely lift a finger, and suddenly she was lauded as a genius. She'd walk into a room with a half-baked thought, and everyone would act like she had invented the next big thing. She knew how to play the game, how to work the system, and she did it so effortlessly that it made me sick. And the worst part? Our parents encouraged it. They praised her confidence, her initiative, and her brilliant ideas. But what about me? What about the countless hours I spent in my room, perfecting every project, planning every detail, and striving for success? It felt like nothing I did ever mattered. When I finally started to build my own identity, developing my own ideas and taking a stand, Emma would swoop in like a hawk and try to take credit. At first, it was just small things. Small wins she'd claim for herself, little projects she'd present as her own. And because everyone had this idea of Emma being the golden child, no one questioned it. No one asked where her ideas came from, and no one ever thought to give me credit for the work I had done. This culminated during a big family meeting, when we were both asked to present our projects for a new initiative. I had been working on mine for months. I was proud of it. It was something that had taken a lot of time, thought, and effort to develop. And when it was my turn to speak, I shared everything I had worked on. But before I could even finish, Emma stepped in with her usual flair, saying how much she loved the idea, and how it was perfect, just needed a little adjustment. In front of everyone, she took over the presentation, acting as if she had been the one who had developed it. And to make matters worse, people actually started praising her for it. I could feel the blood rushing to my face, my heart racing in my chest. I tried to stay calm, to hold it together, but I was furious. I could see the looks on the faces of our parents. They were so impressed by her confidence and her ability to make something so simple sound so brilliant. And here I was, invisible, standing behind her as she took everything I had worked for. It was in that moment that I realized something I had known deep down for years. Emma wasn't just getting the praise for her ideas. She was getting all of the credit for mine, too. I had let this happen for far too long, excusing her behavior and telling myself that it was just how it was. But that day, when she took credit for something that was completely mine, was the last straw. It wasn't just the idea. It wasn't just the project. It was everything. It was the years of watching her walk into rooms and get everything handed to her while I was left in the background, invisible. It was the constant undermining, the constant stealing of credit, and the constant feeling like I didn't matter. I had put up with it for far too long, but now it was time to do something about it. I was done being the invisible one, done letting Emma take what was mine. I wasn't going to let her keep getting away with it. I was going to take back what was rightfully mine, and I would make sure she understood the consequences of stealing from me. Once I realized how far Emma was willing to go to take credit for everything I worked for, I knew something had to change. I was sick of being overlooked, sick of watching her step all over me and take what was mine. The worst part wasn't just the theft of my ideas. It was the fact that no one seemed to notice, no one seemed to care. Emma had a way of making everything she did seem effortless, like she was a genius who was just helping out. People loved her for it, and I was left in the dust. But I wasn't going to let it slide anymore. I couldn't afford to let it slide anymore. This wasn't just about a single idea. It was about taking back control of my own life, my own future. I wasn't going to let her keep stealing from me. I was going to make sure everyone knew the truth, and I would do it in a way that made it clear that I wasn't just the background player anymore. I started by watching Emma more closely. I knew I needed to gather information, something that would expose her for who she really was. The person who relied on everyone around her to do the hard work, only to take the credit and bask in the praise. Emma wasn't the genius she portrayed herself to be. She was just a master manipulator. I started digging through old projects, finding instances where Emma had done the same thing before, claiming ideas as her own, taking credit for things that weren't hers, and walking away with the accolades. It wasn't hard to find evidence of this. Emma was so confident in her ability to fool people that she didn't even bother to cover her tracks. She assumed that because she was the darling of the family and everyone adored her, no one would ever question her. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it anymore. I had a plan, and I was going to execute it carefully. The first step was to make sure I had undeniable proof of what she had done. I began gathering the emails, notes, and documents from projects I knew she had taken credit for. The more I uncovered, the more I realized just how deep this went. Emma had been doing this for years, stealing my ideas, passing them off as her own, and leaving me in the shadows. Next, I started laying the groundwork for my revenge. I didn't want to go in guns blazing and make a scene. I wanted to make sure that when I exposed her, it would be undeniable, and it would make people realize just how manipulative and selfish she truly was. I began subtly planting seeds of doubt. I would casually mention to mutual friends and colleagues how Emma had taken credit for my ideas, just to see if they would start questioning her. I made sure not to go too far, just enough to get people thinking. I knew that once the seed of doubt was planted, Emma would be the one to dig her own hole. She always had to overcompensate, always had to be the center of attention, and I knew she couldn't resist showing off. But the real turning point came when I discovered something even more damning. Emma had been telling people I had stolen her ideas. She was twisting the narrative, making it seem like I was the one who had been copying her and taking credit for her work. I couldn't believe it at first. She had the audacity to turn the situation around and make me out to be the thief? That was it. I had enough. Now I had the proof. I had the lies, the stolen ideas, and the manipulation. All I needed was the right moment to expose her. But I wasn't going to confront her directly. I wanted to make sure the truth came out in a way that everyone would know. I had to make sure that when I exposed her, it would be in a way that people would believe me over her. Emma had been playing the victim for far too long, and now it was time to turn the tables. I set my plan into motion carefully, making sure everything was aligned for the perfect moment. My time was coming. I could feel it. I wasn't just going to expose Emma for what she had done. I was going to take back what was mine and finally get the recognition I deserved. And this time, no one could take that away from me. The moment of truth finally arrived, and I had everything in place. All my hard work, all the evidence, the carefully laid plan. It was time to strike. I had waited long enough, watched her undermine me time and time again, and now it was my turn to take control. It started at a family gathering where Emma was presenting a new project she had come up with. It was almost laughable, considering it was the same idea I had pitched months ago, the one she had stolen from me. She was explaining it to our parents and the rest of the family, acting like she was the mastermind behind it all. I could feel the rage building inside me as I listened to her brag, knowing that everyone was buying into her lies, yet again. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. It wasn't just about getting back at her, it was about making sure I was seen and heard for once. I stood up, my voice steady but loud enough to grab everyone's attention. The room fell silent as I spoke. "Actually, Emma," I said, my eyes locking with hers, "this isn't your idea. It's mine." The gasps from the family were immediate. Emma's face went pale, her confident smile faltering as she tried to compose herself. I didn't give her a chance to speak. I pulled out my phone, showing them the original emails, the project drafts, and all the proof that it had been my idea from the start. I laid everything bare, the months I spent developing it, the late nights I worked on it, the countless hours of effort, all while Emma sat back and took credit for it. She tried to brush it off, laughing nervously. "You're being dramatic," she said, her voice shaking. "That's not what happened." But I wasn't letting her get away with it this time. "Oh, really?" "Because here's the timeline," I continued, showing them the emails where she had taken my project and presented it as her own to our colleagues. "Here's where she pitched my idea and received praise for it as if she had come up with it. And here's the part where she twisted the story and told people I had copied her. Let's not forget that, shall we?" Emma's face flushed with embarrassment, but she refused to back down. "You're lying. This is all nonsense," she spat, but her voice lacked conviction. The entire room was watching now, and I could see the disbelief on their faces. It wasn't just my family who had been fooled. It was everyone. She had successfully manipulated people into thinking she was the brilliant one, the one who had all the ideas, and I had been cast aside. But not anymore. I made sure to show every single person in that room the truth. I had everything lined up. The documentation, the proof, the witnesses who could back up my claims. Emma's manipulation had finally been exposed, and she couldn't talk her way out of it. It was too late. As I watched her struggle to come up with an explanation, I felt a rush of satisfaction. I wasn't just revealing the truth, I was taking back what was mine. My hard work, my effort, my idea. It was finally recognized for what it was, and Emma had nothing left to stand on. She turned to our parents, pleading for them to believe her, to take her side. But it was too late. They had seen the evidence. They had seen the truth. And as much as they wanted to protect her, they couldn't deny what was right in front of them. For once, Emma wasn't the golden child. For once, I wasn't the invisible one. I had exposed her for what she truly was. Someone who took advantage of others to make herself look good. Someone who didn't deserve the praise she had been receiving all these years. As Emma stormed out of the room, humiliated and defeated, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. I had done it. I had taken back what was mine. I had proven that my work, my ideas, and my worth mattered. And as for Emma, she would never get away with stealing from me again. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Emma tried to salvage her reputation, but it was too late. The truth was out, and no amount of pleading or fake apologies could undo the damage. She tried to pretend like nothing had happened, as if she could go back to being the perfect daughter, the perfect sibling, the perfect person everyone admired. But that version of Emma, the one who could charm everyone into thinking she was the best, was gone. For the first time, I saw people starting to question her. Friends who had always been in her corner started distancing themselves. Colleagues who once praised her for ideas that were never hers now looked at her with doubt. I had given them all the proof, and now Emma was being held accountable for what she had done. Our parents, while still loving her, could no longer ignore the fact that she had taken advantage of me for years. They saw the work I had put into my ideas, and the hurt I had kept inside all this time. For once they recognized me, not just as the quiet one in the background, but as someone who had been overlooked and undervalued for far too long. It wasn't the validation I had wanted for years, but it was a start. I moved forward with my life, focused on the future, and made sure that I never allowed anyone to take credit for my hard work again. I launched the project I had originally developed, and it was met with success. People started to notice me in ways they hadn't before. I wasn't just the quiet one anymore. I was the one with ideas that worked, the one who got things done, and it felt incredible. Emma, on the other hand, faced the consequences of her actions. She was no longer the center of attention. The family gatherings, which she used to dominate, felt different. The adoration she once received from our parents started to wane, and people began to see her for who she truly was. She couldn't play the victim anymore, and every attempt to get sympathy only made things worse. There was one last attempt from Emma to repair things. She reached out to me, trying to act like nothing had happened, trying to pretend that we could just go back to the way things were. But I had already moved on. I didn't need her apology, and I didn't want to fix things with her. I had taken control of my life, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. I didn't respond to her messages or calls. I realized that no matter how much she tried to apologize or make amends, she could never take back what she had done. The trust was gone, and she would never get the chance to take credit for my work again. And as I continued to succeed, grow, and move forward, I realized something important. I had taken back my power. I had exposed the truth, and in doing so, I had reclaimed my confidence, my worth, and my future. Emma's lies and manipulation could no longer hold me back. The final lesson I took from all of this: never let anyone take what's yours. Never let anyone dim your light or make you feel invisible. Stand up for yourself even when it's hard, and don't let anyone steal your thunder. Because in the end, the only person who can truly hold you back is you. And I wasn't about to let that happen.